What is going on, everyone? AP over here at Run Pure Sports, bringing to you once again. We have the Lineup Builder Show with our partner SaberSim. I'm here with my guy each and every Monday, Rubio Dimes. Rubio, what's going on, my man? How was your weekend, and how was your NFL Sunday?
Oh, it was a good weekend. I know that last Thursday when Mangone and I were on, we actually shared the winner with the Raiders defense, and they're involved with Easton Stick. So it was good to get that one across the line. I know that was a lot of fun. You know, you had 63-21, and it was almost a 4-2 Chargers that actually ended up winning. It was kind of a crazy slate in that sense, but it was 4-2 Raiders in the end, albeit. And then yesterday it was absolutely awesome too. We had a unique team in the 3-3-3 AP. And so when Jamal Agnew caught that touchdown, I was in the top 10 the entire slate for the most part. Hope Keaton Mitchell comes back strong. He was the one that I had who was propelling me up the leaderboard as well until he got hurt. And then just needed 3 points from Evan Ingram, and it would have been an insane day. But hey, we take 20K. We take 20K just like we did on Thursday too. So keep that momentum rolling, and we're gonna crush now.
Yeah, that was you guys crushed it on Thursday. You and Mangone. I think you guys will be running it back. I got to check in with them because I'm going to be out this Thursday, but we will see. I mean, that'll be good mojo for the people, and I think you guys will go back to back if that's the case. So tonight, we were talking right before we got started. I think we're both looking forward to the game tonight. We got Eagles, Seahawks. It looks like it's going to be likely Jalen Hurts versus Drew Lock. And, Eagles secondary kind of in shambles right now. It sets up to be a great slate for like the skill position and the pass catching, their wide receivers. And do we have the base build is going right now? What's your overview, kind of big picture, macro viewpoint of the slate tonight?
Yeah, I mean, so we just got word from Rappaport, about 3 hours ago or so, that said Geno Smith is a long shot to play today. We just saw Drew Lock last week go against a really tough defense in the 49ers. Some stats in garbage time, right? Like, it wasn't, it wasn't the worst game from Drew Lock. It's certainly not great. 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions. However, fantasy points are the only thing that matters. You had 268 yards, where now you're going against a much worse secondary, a much worse just defense in general. And I hope that they're able to put up points. And I think that Jalen Hurts, I'm expecting him to play as well. So it's going to be a double quarterback slate for me. 9,200 for Drew Lock. There's one thing, whenever we run the main slate here, the showdown slate, I should say, I've had to make one adjustment. We usually don't like to make adjustments, but I had to take Geno Smith out of the pool. I gave Drew Lock about a point lower than Geno Smith would have. That's just some caveat there. But yes, it's going to be a double quarterback. I think it's going to be a lot of points on the board tonight if Drew Lock can hold his own. And I'm looking forward to it. I think we have a lot of wide receivers here. Like DK Metcalf here is like just a good price at 9,600. You get Devontae Smith at 9K, 2.2K lower than AJ Brown. It's certainly interesting, AP, because I think you can just really stack up these pass catchers for the most part, and these running games could go really overlooked.
Yeah, I agree. And, I think it's interesting because just look at the schedule for the Eagles. I mean, for both teams, to be honest. The Eagles coming off games, obviously, against the Bills, the 49ers, and the Cowboys. And the Seahawks coming off, they had to play they played 49ers, Cowboys, 49ers. So, like, that's kind of a brutal stretch, in the schedule right there. And you kind of see it when looking at the injury report. The Eagles secondary has been good all season, but going to be without Darius Slay, I believe, tonight. And, like Drew Lock, can he I got to be cautious. I said Zach Wilson looked good the game before. Horrendous yesterday. Like, absolutely embarrassing. Maybe not quite as embarrassing as the Cowboys. Sorry, Cowboys fans. You guys will bounce back when you get that next home game. You guys will be fine. But is Drew Lock going to go the way of Zach Wilson? Or, I mean, the thing about Drew Lock and the spot that he's in is, like, his receiving core is so talented. You have DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, and then Jackson Smith, who's been incredible and is really starting to to shine on the season. And then for the Eagles, you have obviously A.J. Brown, Devontae Smith. And then when you look at the flow chart, at least what I'm looking at, we can attack both teams through the air. So it grades out to be a slate that looks really nice for me on paper. And, just looking at the receivers here, and it comes down to, in my opinion, can we get kind of that back and forth type of environment? Can Drew Lock keep pace? That's kind of the debate that's going on in my head right now. So we got the base build up. What's it showing for tonight?
Lots of Captain Jalen Hurts, which makes sense. I'm not concerned about the illness keeping him out too much, or just limiting his ability. He's the highest projected by quite a bit. I think he's the highest projected by 5 points, or almost 5 points. So you get a lot of Jalen Hurts Captain. Let's go ahead and check out the builds here. You see a 4-2 Seahawks. I think that's kind of the move. I mean, I like the Eagles. I think they win this game. However, you have to look at who's producing offense for them, right? Let's just go ahead and narrow it down to the Eagles here. A.J. Brown is over 11K. Devontae Smith for his tag, 9K. We've seen him in the 7Ks at times. I'm sure. DeAndre Swift splitting work with Kenneth Gainwell here at 4.4 and 8K. That's a tall ask. You might stumble upon a lot of 4-2 Seahawks tonight because of the way the pricing is. We're not getting a ton of Eagles across the board in the flex. And some of that has to do with Jalen Hurts being in the captain a ton. When we flip over to the Seahawks, you get multiple guys, like 4 guys above 40%. Like, just to compare that, you have 1 guy above 40% on the Eagles side of the ball. This doesn't even include one of my favorite plays who, remember, this is just the base build, right? We haven't changed many numbers. But DK Metcalf, I think, will be able to take the top off this defense tonight. I really like him, and he's only 9,600. I think I'd almost rather have him over A.J. Brown. And I might walk back that a little bit later. But what you're going to see is a lot of Seahawks 3-3 or Seahawks 4-2 and a lot of 3-3s and hardly any 5-1s. So let's go ahead and check out these 5-1s real quick. It's Eagles, it's Seahawks. It's kind of got a good mix. And I kind of like the Jalen Hurts captain, or if you just ran 5 Seahawks back, I think that's like a way to I wouldn't say it's unique because 5-1s are harder to get unique, but it could definitely be a little caveat there. And just across the board, though, I mean, you have the cheap options are on the Seahawks too. Like you can see a guy like Colby Parkinson, right? He's 200. The Eagles don't really have anyone in that range. Let's get rid of that. They have 1 guy below 1K, and that's Quez Watkins, who's probably a good play. We probably get a lot of him. We get 15%. But on the Seahawks side of the ball, again, we get these cheap tight ends where if you're trying to punt a spot and trying to fit in Jalen Hurts, there's the funnel of more Seahawks builds too. So that's kind of where the initial build is leading us, AP.
Yeah, and I'm never going to argue against like a Jalen Hurts captain route. What is interesting, because Jalen Hurts, one of those quarterbacks that we historically like to consider at the captain position when thinking about like optimal constructions. He had this season alone, he hasn't been optimal yet. The guys that have, or the players that have popped A.J. Brown 4 times, 1 quarterback has been optimal in Philly games. That's actually Josh Allen 3 games ago, and then it's been a lot of receivers. Michael Gallup last game, Deebo Samuel the game before that. So you're talking a lot of skill position players, primarily receivers. 2 running backs. Actually, I take that back. 2 quarterbacks have. Mac Jones, first game of the year, was optimal at the captain spot. So Jalen Hurts maybe #due, because last season he was optimal in the captain spot quite a bit. And when I look at that, and when I look at the past optimals, why is that happening? His price tag seems to be a little bit more elevated this season as well. And obviously pricing matters. And, instead of like distributing it out, we've seen a lot of isolation, and targeting A.J. Brown, which is why he's been optimal 4 times. But obviously, Devontae Smith has had 2 nice games, going back to the game against who was that against? 49ers and the Bills. So I don't know. And when you look at it, when I look at them, the Seahawks too, you see a similar trend, a lot of skill position players. So the last few captains, Deebo Samuel, DK Metcalf, Christian McCaffrey, Bijan Robinson, Snyder's boy, Keaton Mitchell, Tyler Lockett, JSN, Tyler Boyd. I mean, this, if there was ever a slate that sets up well for me, because I love plugging in receivers at the captain spot. That's like my favorite thing to do. And this has to be my slate. So right on the surface, if I guess in my mind, if Jalen Hurts is going to be a popular captain option, I love the idea of just like in our bias build as we rework things, maybe considering Xing him out. I don't do that too often, but we will see. So, and what we need to happen is we need that back and forth. We need obviously both teams to target each other through the air. If we get that environment, it's going to set up very well for me and for us. Let's do it. Let's start a new build and let's go position by position like we've been doing over the past few weeks. And let's dial in these projections to create some biases to try and get different from the field, because that's what we want to do. We don't want to just like run our standard projections and, dupe a bunch. We want to get different. We want to try to achieve that solo shipper or, tie with a bunch of our best friends, which is fine as well. I mean, who's really going to bitch over, chopping for 10K a piece? I love those slates, it is what, like, no one's complaining. It always feels good. Chip with the community. I obviously missed out last week, but tonight I'm chopping with everyone. I feel it. So talk to me through the quarterbacks here. We obviously have a big boy projection on Jalen Hurts. Drew Lock is kind of the question mark. So what are you seeing here with the projections?
So just real quick, when we do these like adjustments, if you're new here or anything, we're going to go position by position. We're going to go ahead and kind of break down whether we're buying or selling the projection that we currently have, whether we want more, and seeing what the base build gave us too. And then we're going to run the sims. All right. So then we're going to run the sims here, see what we get in the end all be all, and see where our exposures finish at. I like Drew Lock a lot tonight. The thing is, we don't really have a baseline projection. I just projected them one under Geno, but I have been attacking the Philadelphia secondary for many weeks now, and I don't want to stop now, AP. Like, I want to get a lot of Drew Lock tonight. I think he's also an athlete. I mean, there's just no denying it. The dude's an athlete. If he can run the ball too, and not that we saw it a ton last week, he had about 5 yards rushing and stuff, but if anyone can pull off a 15-yard run, Drew Lock is definitely that guy. I wouldn't mind boosting him up to about 18.5. That's about a point above where Geno was. Jalen Hurts, I wouldn't mind just selling just a tad just to make sure we don't get a ton in captain. Last game against the Cowboys, we had him on the showdown slate. Jalen Hurts was not optimal in that lineup at all, I don't think. I think it was A.J. Brown who ended up being optimal. It's been weird. I mean, the tush push has obviously been a huge factor for Jalen Hurts hitting those optimal lineups every time and stuff, but it just doesn't click right now. It's not clicking a ton for me, AP, but I still want to keep him on. I still want to get a lot of him, but I just know that, if we're getting whatever amount in the captain that we just had 82%, I'd rather be around 20%. Like, it just is, it's scary to me. I don't know if the talent or if the price tag matches the ownership, I should say.
Yeah. So I want to be a buyer on Drew Lock here. I think it was Ringo, I believe last name, taken over for Darius Slay. It was not good last week. Just looking it up. I mean, Michael Gallup, 50 yards and a tutty. CeeDee Lamb, touchdown, 71 yards. The week before that, Debo, Jennings, Ayuk, they all smashed. The week before that, Diggs, Gabe Davis smashed. The week before that, my Chiefs, they failed to smash against the secondary. But the theme has been you can absolutely torch Philly through the air. We've been talking about that all season. Like they've seemed off, and that this isn't like a new thing. And now they're even weaker out there in the secondary. But it comes down to Drew Lock. Can he get it done? Again, we talked about it. I thought he looked good last week. I also thought Zach Wilson looked good last week, and he was horrendous. Maybe it helps that Drew Lock is at home and can maybe hopefully slice and dice. The other thing that's going to help Drew Lock, in my opinion, is the weapons around him. We talk about it all the time. And you see it with these quarterbacks right now, like Brock Purdy, the best example everywhere. To date, it's better to have like a system built around skill players. And that's what Brock Purdy has. And that's why he's like a cash lock each and every week, which is kind of insane to think about, but it really is. He's like the one quarterback getting it done each and every week. Super, super reliable. So that's kind of what I'm seeing in Drew Lock. So it's more so, can he manage the game, get the ball to his skill position players? And I see that happening. And that's why I want to be a buyer on his projection. So is that 18.5 that you have it on?
Yes, 18.5. Gino is around like 17.1 or something like that.
And I like being a slight seller on Jalen Hurts. And the only reason it's not, it's more so I want I guess in my mind, if he's going to be a popular captain, it's not that I want to fade Jalen Hurts at all. He already has a really good projection on him. And maybe fading him in the captain spot is not going to be the best route. But if he's going to be mega chalk and we're trying to get different, it might be a position that I take. But I'm pretty good at those.
Projected ownership real quick. They're projecting around 19% for Jalen Hurts. Let's go ahead and change Drew Lock's projected ownership in the captain here. Let's go ahead and apply this because the ownership matters when we do the Sims. And I think that, honestly, I think Trevor Lawrence is about 44% overall last night. So let's go ahead, add that in, and now we're good. So I just wanted to make sure that we added ownership in before we moved on.
I like that. Yeah, let's move on to the running back spot. The other reason why maybe we take like a negative stance or a selling stance on Jalen Hurts is you can run on. I mean, the Seahawks defense is just not good right now at all. But opposing running backs, specifically opposing RB1s, have done extremely well. Christian McCaffrey, Pollard, McCaffrey, but then it was Henderson, Brian Robinson had a monster game. Obviously, it was mainly catching balls out of the backfield, but opposing running backs have done very well against the Seahawks. And, the Eagles have been middling against running backs as well. So if you really want to flip the script, I do think that incorporating running backs could be the route to go also. Because like immediately when I looked at all my stuff, when I kind of did my initial preview this morning, it was, oh man, this is going to be a great slate to target the pass catchers, which is what I've talked about primarily. But I guess we can't forget about the running backs because it does grade out to be a decent running back spot as well. So now it comes down to, are we going to get the points? Are we going to get the points, or is this going to be another trash primetime game? I'm hopeful. I'm a believer in points, so I'm going to side with that. What's your take on the running backs and the projections that are in front of us?
The Eagles have been one of the best teams to watch all year just because they keep games entertaining and they do give up points and stuff. And a lot of that, especially on the Seahawks side of the ball, they've been getting points in bunches to running backs. And I have a tough time trusting Swift, right? Because he's splitting work with Kenneth Gainwell and even Boston Scott to a degree. I think they had 7 carries to his 11 last week, which isn't like the most confident, answer in the world, right? But I do want to buy on him, right? I think that we're still going to angle for the pass game, but I don't want to sell on a great matchup against Seahawks who, just haven't been great. Against the run, they just have been absolutely awful. McCaffrey scampered out to a 72-yard run last week to start the game and stuff. DeAndre Swift is behind a great offensive line. He's been optimal in Showdown in the past for us. I will definitely buy on him at 8K because it kind of goes hand in hand where if I'm slightly selling on Jalen Hurts, well, hey, maybe DeAndre Swift takes one of those touchdowns from 5 yards out instead of getting down to the 1. So I'll definitely buy on Swift. I mean, if you want to bet on talent, you can do much worse than betting on Kenneth Walker. So let's just kind of just mix it up here. Let's buy on Kenneth Walker. Let's sell on Charbonnet. So that way we're still allocating the same amount of points to the Seahawks running back position, but we're mixing it up, right? I think Kenneth Walker, a week to get healthy, maybe he gets more touches than Charbonnet here. And I just think that I'd rather buy on the far more talented back, a guy who can hit a home run at any given time. So I'll buy on Kenneth Walker. I'll sell on Charbonnet. He's still 2.5 points below Swift too. So it's not like it's going to be a huge deal or whatever, but it will definitely matter when it comes time to sim. But yeah, Kenneth Gainwell, I mean, I'm curious to see what you got to say about him. I mean, he's capable out of the backfield with his hands at the very least. They do like to utilize him. 4.83, I mean, we're just not going to get any of him. And I don't think that's the move. I think you definitely want a little bit, right? But what do you think about it?
Yeah, I mean, I think so. I think it was against the 49ers. Against Kenneth Gainwell was optimal in the flex spot. And how that happened was we just had, I mean, it was all skill position players. And it was a double quarterback build filled around with skill position players with Deebo Samuel at the captain spot, which is kind of the game environment that you want, where you need that, value piece to get you a decent number to fit in all those studs around it. So that's kind of the script that we're building on. So I don't want to fully like sell on a guy like Gainwell. I think maybe we can be slight buyers, like bumping up 5.1. Like we don't need to get crazy. We don't want an overwhelming amount of them in our builds. So I think slight buyers is fine. And then regarding Charbonnet versus Kenny Walker, they're actually really close. So our guy Kenny Walker was 56% of the snaps last week to 42% of Charbonnet. If you go back to weeks 1 through 4, kind of very similar. It was like a 65 to 35 split versus timeshare split. So that's kind of the assumption that I'm working on right now, that I think we see that split between the two. So I'm honestly slight buyers on both RB1s here, and just I think we don't like, maybe a slight seller on Charbonnet and a slight buyer on Gainwell, just to be a little bit different. What's your thoughts on that?
I love it. Let's get Gainwell above Charbonnet here. Let's hope that.
Yeah, I like it. Okay, we can get aggressive with it. I think that's fine.
It's aggressive. What we would be angling here is that we'd be angling that Kenneth Gainwell and DeAndre Swift are able to run on this defense, or maybe we're just buying on the Philadelphia running backs in general, hoping to get more of them. It's a lot of points, definitely a lot of points, but yeah, I can see it happening. Seahawks have been that bad against running backs lately.
And you don't like in Showdown specifically, even, you don't want the same projections as everyone else. You want to find a way to get different. You don't want to run what every single other person out there is doing. And so I like kind of flipping the script via that. And then, I mean, DJ Dallas, Boston Scott, I could X them out or just leave them where they're at. I don't think they'll factor in at all, but I don't see them playing. Let's move on to the wide receiver, and you could probably include tight ends as well.
Yes, absolutely. We'll include all the pass catchers here, and it's a good slate for wide receivers. I think that there's one guy I really want to buy on. I came in the whole week. I'm like, man, this dude's going to smash. He can get just some major catches down the field, as we saw against the Cowboys. And I don't think Drew Lock, has that thought in the back of his head, like, oh no, I don't want to make a mistake, because he can make mistakes. I think DK Metcalf's the main beneficiary of it. Just to get him down closer and stuff. I think that, having AJ Brown 2 points ahead is fair. Like I said, I want to buy on these Seahawks receivers. I don't want to go against my word there at all. I think Jackson Smith and Jigba, Tyler Lockett, give them slight bumps up. See what we get. Yeah, we're buying the Seahawks passing game. We're buying the Eagles run game a little bit. I think Devontae Smith is fine where he's at, but if you want to bump him up, definitely get it. Same with Dallas Goedert. And then we hit this dead zone. All right, the dead zone here is gross. I mean, Colby Parkinson probably gets some ownership. Did he catch a touchdown last week? I think Parkinson did, right?
Did he? He might have. I don't.
Yeah, he is 200, I believe. And I'm spitballing here. Let me just go ahead and double check that. And yes, it was a Colby Parkinson touchdown. He had 2 targets, 2 catches, 28 yards. So you can see he's projecting for about 10% ownership here. So it makes sense here. Let's go ahead and just kind of, just mark him here. Quez Watkins, same way, a guy who's had, 3-4 targets at times, can get targets down the field. I would rather have Quez Watkins over him. So let's go ahead and just make that change. Noah Fant, as frustrating as he is, what's the one thing that Drew Lock and Noah Fant have in common? They were teammates for several years.
Shower narrative. I like it.
Yeah, so we want to play that narrative game, right? We want to say, oh, man, maybe Noah Fant gets more work. Obviously, it can be skewed a little bit, whatever. 4 targets for Fant last week. He is officially under 3K. Why not? Why not buy on Fant just a tad? Goes in line with what we're buying on the Seahawks pass game. Disley, I mean, you got to give him a projection just because these random Seahawks tight ends always pop. And let's flip over to the Philadelphia side of the ball, too. And don't forget my boy, Jake Bobo. Eagles, it's obviously dominated by Goddard, Brown, and Smith, right? You're going to look for who else can get targets outside of these guys. Last week, only 1 target went outside that Smith, Brown, and Dallas Goedert range. It was Olamide Zaccheaus, who had 1 target last week. I don't know when that was. I was watching that game. I do remember Zaccheaus catching that pass. However, goes to show that the usage around these Philadelphia pass catchers is going to be really low. I'm not sure what you want to do with them, but I'm happy to hear your thoughts here on the wide receivers as well.
Yeah, so I like what you started to do there with the projections. I go back to the Saturday slate and just thinking about, like, if you just bump them, like, let's just say we're taking an aggressive stance on the receivers here, and if you just like blindly like are buyers on each and every one of them, you're not really doing much outside of just like overinflating like the receivers, projection. Like wide receiver 1's going up like this, wide receiver 2's going up like this, but like, I like that we're slight sellers on AJ Brown, slight buyers then on, Devontae Smith is kind of what I would like to see. And then, a slight buyer on DK Metcalf, but then maybe how we could flip the script even more is get aggressive on Lockett and JSN. And what I'm talking about, like on the Saturday slate, when you look at, in hindsight, it's always 2020, but we're trying to get different. We're trying to flip the script in some way, shape, or form. But when you looked at T. Higgins versus Jamar Chase, 41% owned. T. Higgins was 11% owned. Obviously, benefited from the injury of Jamar Chase, which was unfortunate. But still, just flipping things there. I mean, T. Higgins went off, and Jamar Chase, underwhelmed. That kind of a bad analogy there. Just working on, because Jamar Chase got hurt. But the other one, too, was Jordan Addison versus Justin Jefferson. Jefferson was 24% owned. Addison was 9%. And Addison absolutely nuked. I only use that comparison because this slate is loaded with receivers. So, like, I could see, like, if you want to try to get different, like a Devontae Smith plus Tyler Lockett or Devontae Smith, JSN type of build versus, like, just doing what everyone else is probably going to do and focus in on Metcalf and AJ Brown. I think it's like an easier way to flip the script here because I could honestly see, like, all it takes for Devontae Smith to get there, like one absolute deep ball bomb, 70-yard touchdown, which is in the realm of outcomes for a guy like Devontae Smith. And then JSN too, like JSN has looked awesome. And I think that big breakout game is coming. And so I just want to be buyers on a few of these guys. Tyler Lockett, not as confident in him, but again, he's another guy that has that upside. So with that, if we really wanted to flip the script at receiver here, how aggressive could we get on the wide receiver number 2s, number 3s, in your opinion?
I think the JSN one, as much as I love Jackson Smith-Njigba, he is definitely on the high end of his projection, right? I don't mind bumping up Lockett, though. I like Lockett quite a bit. Let's go ahead and bump him up to near Devontae Smith, and let's even get Devontae Smith like just right below Metcalf, right? Let's go ahead and see what this does. We already bumped down Brown. We gave DK Metcalf a slight bump. We barely bumped up, Jackson Smith-Njigba, but I mean, what has he done? And I know I love Njigba. I think he's one of the best wide receivers in this draft class still. And it was just put in a situation where there was 2 good guys, a mediocre quarterback, and not a lot of pass attempts to go around for him. They didn't know how to utilize him. But what has he done to merit like an 11-point projection in my eyes? I would put him at like 9 and just like, hey, look, the Eagles matchup gives the wide receivers the benefit of the doubt. We're definitely bumping him up. And that's what the Sims did, probably. It's a great spot. I think we're on the high side of Jackson Smith-Njigba's projection. We'll keep that firm. But Lockett and Devontae, I'm definitely buying on with you.
Yeah, I'm with you there. I still think with how thin Philly's secondary is, I mean, if you're trying to scheme against the Seahawks right now, take away Metcalf with the best option that you have left. And I don't know. I think it leaves room for Tyler Lockett and JSN. But yeah, you make a good point. That is a pretty aggressive baseline projection as well. So I'm fine with that. How aggressive do we want to be sellers on AJ Brown? It's not AJ Brown, but AJ Brown, because the price tag there. I mean, we don't want to sell too much because he does have the biggest price tag out of all the receivers, but just keep it 18. I think I'm probably fine with that. Like, we don't want to fade the receivers.
You like you said, he's been captain 4 times this season already for the Eagles on those showdown slates. Yeah. Doesn't make you comfortable to bump down more than that, though. Let's go.
Yeah, and then the tight ends. It's a good. I mean, watch this be like a crazy like when you pull up the flow. I mean, it's just such a good like the Seahawks have been bad against tight ends, and it's not like the Eagles are that great against tight ends either. I mean, Kittle, Jake Ferguson both had big games, and tight ends have done very well against the Seahawks too. Like each and every game. Like I don't think we've seen Dalton Kincaid, 5 catches on 6 targets for like 40 yards was the worst tight end performance recently against them. So there are a lot of skill position options. It leads me to be kind of on the surface under on defenses and maybe like slight sellers on kickers. A lot of it comes down to price as well. So what's your thoughts here on the kickers and defenses for this slate?
All right, I'm going to make a major selling point on the Eagles defense. How many times have we seen a defense in the optimal? It's been an absurd amount, right? It's Drew Lock at quarterback. Drew Lock last week, tough matchup, 2 interceptions, 4 sacks. They still put up 16 points, all right? But your defense still got a good floor with 8 floor points right there. What is it? +1 fantasy point. They still got 9 fantasy points. The Eagles are only 4,600. That's a very affordable price tag for a defense here. This has not been a Seahawks O-line that has been able to stand people up and just, make things happen. The one good game that this defense has had was that Cowboys game, right? Or the Seahawks offensive line has had was that Cowboys game. Other than that, they give up a lot of sacks sometimes too. Becomes something that I think Drew Lock can make mistakes. I think he can take some sacks, and I really like the Seahawks or the Eagles defense tonight. I'll slightly sell on the Seahawks, but I really want to bump up the Eagles defense like 7. All right. I think that even 7.75, get him at the same projection as Jason Myers. Let's get Jason Myers just barely ahead of him. Kickers are fine here, but I don't want to overproject them. I feel like I've been getting 30% of them in every slate, and that just hasn't been the move. Justin Tucker last night, the exception to the rule, but kickers haven't been hitting at a high clip. Now, a lot of that has to do with the way DK priced them this year. They're about $1K more expensive, and I think selling and getting the Eagles defense just a tick below Myers and then seeing what the Sims play out is probably best. Do you agree, or do you think we should do anything else?
No, I mean, defense is the one position that's just so like volatile. I mean, like the Eagles got absolutely smashed last week, but I believe they had a defensive touchdown, and so they got their 10 points. Yeah. So I get what you're saying, and I like it. And I don't want to fully fade or discount it. And I would make the same case for like the Eagles side too. Like for the Seahawks side, I don't think I want to fully be sellers on. I think 575 is a little aggressive. 575 points,
they're
a little bit aggressive
originally. They are 575.
I know. What was that?
See, when I typed in this.
Yeah. I think 5.75 is fine. Just because 3,400 for defense is definitely cheap. 1 pick 6, scoop and score. They're likely optimal. You would think so. Yeah, I like the script that we have built. Let's run this, run the Sims on it, and we'll see what happens. Do you want to talk the people through kind of what the anyone that's new with us, what the contest Sims are and what they do after we run this build?
Yeah, so after we run this build, you're going to see about a pool of 5,000 lineups that SaberSim is currently creating based upon what we've projected and stuff, right? There's one way to look at them. You can look at them projected score, like your just traditional optimizer. You can look at them how Saber grades them with their Saber score feature, which is still a great tool. Really like that one. Or you can do contest sim settings, which we'll go ahead and get to here in a second. So once this build is done, I can add contest sims. Usually I do it from the contest page right here above, but since it is building right now, I don't have that ability. You have the ability to create your own contest sims as well if you don't see your flagship tournament on there. And I would add the contest sim here, and it would all of a sudden give me a giant button that says run contest sims up there that we'll get to shortly. And once we get there, I'll pick back up. But basically what it does is sims the contest. I think it's, is it 100,000 or 10,000? 100,000 times, I think. It sims the contest 100,000 times, tells you which lineups were optimal the most, what the win rate was, what the return on investment was for each of those lineups too. Basically gives you a clear view of what the best lineups to play are for tonight. We're using your projections that we just put in. So it's a lot of fun. It's real easy to do. I think it's a great tool. I don't always agree with them. There's sometimes where I make changes. There's sometimes where I have to, manually add input. And that's the beauty of it too, where it's not just a robot spitting it out and saying, hey, here you go. We're putting our own inputs in. We're getting different from the field. We don't want to use the traditional predictions that everyone's going to use, because then you fall in line with what everyone else is using, right? So it's fun. And I think that about 3,000 lineups, I could let you guys get the full basket of 2,000 more lineups being built, or I can end it early and we can actually get to the content. So we'll end it early at 3,000 lineups, and then I'll show you how to add these contest sims. Go to contest, hit all contest, and right-click the contest that you want. It's the $20 entry tonight with 500K to first, the flagship contest. I'll go ahead and right-click, hit save settings after adding contest sim, and all of a sudden it'll appear over here. But let's go ahead and add in a single entry lineup for $5. And let's add in a 20 max. Let's do the $3 play action tonight as well. And then when we go back to the tab that we just built, it's Drew Lock season is what the name is. And we got a contest sims. I make sure I check mark each of these 3 contests. It's the $20, the single entry, and the 20 max. And look at that. I have a giant run contest sims button here. But first, I want to show you guys, hey, how do I sort by projected score? Well, you can just hit this little arrow here. This is the top projected team based upon our projections right now. It's got a 99.3 projection. It includes a Colby Parkinson punt, but it does give us 2 pass catchers with both quarterbacks. 2 pass catchers with Drew Lock, 3 pass catchers even, and AJ Brown with the JSN Captain. So you have a lot of stuff too. You can sort by ownership. Like, let's say this one's way too high owned for you. You can exit out. And you have a whole lot of ability too. I mean, it's just really nice. Let's go ahead and run these contest sims and then see what it spits out.
I like that build that you had up was so good with Jalen Hurts. Like, you could just thinking about how this game, I mean, this game can play out in so many different ways. And there's so many different skill position players that can get there. And so there's going to be a lot of really nice builds that you're sifting through. But I like that one. It was AJ Brown, or no, it was Hurts captain, AJ Brown, and then it was Drew Lock, and it was Drew Lock double stack. I think it just looked really good because you could see, the tush push definitely gives them more upside, especially in the red zone, the goal line. That hurts, obviously, the running backs too, just because they're going to that. And so, like, the build makes sense. Like, you can think through it, how the game could potentially play out, and that build made a lot of sense. So you ran the contest sims. Are you sorting by risk adjusted?
Yes. So let's go ahead and go through our captain pool real quick with RAROI. We'll go through the 150 set real fast. It's a lot of Tyler Lockett, DK Metcalf captain, which makes sense here. We like the pass catchers on the Seahawks side of the ball. I'm actually very comfortable with the Seahawks wide receivers being my top captains tonight. Jalen Hurts clocks in at the top Eagles captain with Devontae Smith, DeAndre Swift close behind. It's nice. I think the only guy that I'd feel nervous about is AJ Brown. I think I'd split the 2 uniques. Let's see how much more the AJ Brown we get. We get about 7%, which that's fine. I think that's a good captain spread. I like the way this looks already, AP. I like it on 2 uniques too, because there's no clear value. I ran 1 unique the other night with Zamir White being the clear value in that game. Didn't want to lose a lot of Zamir White. Didn't want to get too cute. Obviously, if you had Trey Tucker, props to you. I mean, that was the move. I actually didn't have Trey Tucker at all. So if you had him, uniques could have helped you there, but I didn't have him, and it still ended up being the winner. Obviously, wasn't the optimal, because if someone went Tucker over Zamir straight up, it would have been the winner. Solo shipper for 300K. But yeah, I think these ownerships are really nice. Slightly concerned about where our Drew Lock is, and you know what it is, AP. This is where it's a slight concern for me. We can't do the contest sims with Drew Lock in. The reason being is that he doesn't have an ownership, and slight hindrance on the show. I tried to project him for 40% to see if we get him. Obviously, he's not appearing in these top builds.
If you manually add in the ownership, will that help?
I did add the ownership, and it doesn't look like it helped. So,
gotcha.
Yeah. So I think we can do this. So obviously, I love contest sims. I swear by contest sims. However, unfortunately, on this show, I don't think we're going to be able to utilize contest sims to the best of its ability. So what we're going to do, we're going to do this traditional way. We're going to go by single game, and I want to do a projected score. I think that'll probably be not single game. Let's go ahead and back out of this. We're going to go by projected score and see what the top builds are this way. There we go.
Yeah. Yep. I like that. The other thing that you could do too is if I saw that we were getting a little bit of, maybe not the case anymore, but it looked like we were getting in the captain spot, defenses and kickers. We could X those out. I don't know what your thought. Like, I don't know if I want to. Yeah, I don't. For me, I don't think it's a. I mean, I rarely play defenses in the captain anyway. This doesn't feel like the slate, and also kickers for me doesn't feel like the. So we have just too many. You know, it's supported by looking at the past optimals, and obviously, what happened this season doesn't, you know, isn't indicative of mean it's going to, you know, happen again. But like these skill position players for both teams have hit at a very high clip. We did have Greg Zuerlein, Greg the Leg earlier for the Eagles game, but outside of that, it's been a lot of receivers, couple running backs, and that's the same for the Seahawks too. It sets up to be a great skill position player in the captain spot slate for me, and I don't mind like spreading it out too. You know, among these, this might be a little aggressive, but if you kept it at 2, and if you just X'd out Jalen Hurts and Drew Lock, I'm curious what happens to the ownership at the captain.
There you go. That's actually an interesting aspect there. I think that's interesting because the Seahawks receivers are really cheap. And if Drew Lock does well, I mean, you're at the point where we said this about Dak last time. Drew Lock has to run one in to be the optimal captain with the way his receivers are priced, right? And he can throw one to Colby Parkinson and say, fuck you, Rubio, you're a dumbass. But I think you can get rid of Drew Lock tonight. It's tough to get rid of Jalen Hurts, but this is a guy where if he's not getting the tush push, like, what is he? What is he? Really? Like, I don't know. I think that you can X him out. It would be overly aggressive. I think I'd rather limit him, but I think it's a good move to see where it takes us here on this slate, and it's a lot of what we want. It gives you that leverage with DeAndre Swift, right? It gives you Tyler Lockett. It gives you Devontae Smith. It gives us a lot of what we want, I think. So it's not bad at all.
Now what we could do, too, is maybe slightly bump up. So we're doing it after the fact, but let's slightly bump up A.J. Brown just a little bit.
Yeah, let's do that. Let's get him up to – that'd be a 1.5 point bump up here. Let's go ahead and hit apply. Boom. 19% now. You see a build like this, both quarterbacks, another punt, tight end. It's these Tyler Lockett and Jackson Smith and Jigba builds that you were talking about, the mid-tier. I think someone just put it in. Yeah, it was Rance who said that the prices were too nice on them. I can see that the Lockett and Jigba lock stacks are going to be very popular because of the price.
Yeah, yep. No, they definitely should be. And but I like how these builds set up. I think by having one of these skill position players at the captain and then spreading it out, it's not going to be that difficult, in my opinion, to get overweight on that route, because if our ownership projections are correct on Jalen on Hurts captain, if he is closing in on like 18 to 20%. If you X them out, and then if you X out Drew Lock too, and then if you X out all the like random, like we could even X out Zacchaeus, I don't think it's going to be too difficult to get overweight among these group of receivers and skill position players. And we have the running backs in there too, I believe. Can you sort by ownership once again? Their exposure? I mean, yeah. So yeah, DeAndre Swift right there. We're not getting much. We're not getting any Kenny Walker, but I'm fine with that. I mean, I would rather attack Philly through the air anyway. So I don't. I like what we're seeing at the captain spot. And what's our flex? So I would assume that we have a ton of double quarterback builds.
Yeah, we have a ton. I mean, you look at it, the 88% have Jalen Hurts, right? Out of those 88%, right? So
here's what I also want to see, because this could be
builds, 84 of them have double quarterback in the flex.
So one way, if you really want to try to get unique, and maybe due to pricing, it could work. I think for it to work, that you have to play DeAndre Swift. But what do the non-Jalen Hurts builds look like? We X them out of the captain. So if we do the negative spyglass, we can see we have how many builds? We have 18 builds without him. And then I always like to do this and then look. So Tyler, that first build right there, I think it has Swift in it. Perfect. That's what we want. And then the double receiver, that's interesting. Could it get there? It could, due to just if Devontae Smith and AJ Brown, if they get the receptions. Maybe the touchdowns go to then DeAndre Swift. I mean, it feels a little thin not to have Hurts in that build, but due to pricing, I think it could make sense. If Jalen Hurts rushes in a touchdown, you're screwed. You're absolutely screwed. But I don't know. That build makes a little sense. What's your thoughts on these builds, like the non-Jalen Hurts builds?
It's aggressive when you do Smith and AJ Brown, but even with only leaving 100, I think that it wouldn't be duped a ton. Because not a lot of people want to do it. If you're looking, wow, these ROIs suck, it's because Drew Lock, I think some glitch happened or whatever with Contest Sims, where Drew Lock's not in there right now. If we had Geno Smith in, it would look very normal, but it's overly aggressive. I don't hate it, though. I think it'll definitely get unique. The way that it would go is that AJ Brown would catch a touchdown, or Smith would catch the one touchdown. Swift scores one on the ground. And, maybe Hurts doesn't do a lot with his legs tonight. Maybe he doesn't get a touch push in. I mean, his price tag's high. You would need AJ Brown to just straight up outscore him, though. Even though you would fall short on Hurts versus Brown there, I think, by just very slightly. So you'd be 100 short on Jalen Hurts. It's aggressive. I don't hate it, though. I don't think it's the worst build in the world.
It is crazy. Going back to Thanksgiving Day, the optimal build was a no quarterback build. It was Christian McCaffrey, and this I'm talking to the Seahawks, 49ers, CMC captain, Deebo Samuel, Brandon Ayuk. So you have the running back plus two receivers on the same team, no Brock Purdy. And you have the 49ers defense and Seahawks defense and Jason Myers, kicker. So you have double defense, 3 skill position players, and a kicker. I mean, that, and it used 49,600 salary. I mean, that build is insane. That thing is wild. And that's why we love Showdown. So many different things can happen. A lot of it driven by obviously pricing, game flows. So yeah, I wouldn't. I mean, I feel like this is a quarterback in the flex type of slate, but I don't know. And we're probably not getting we probably have 0 no quarterback builds, right?
Oh, we have 12. Oh, actually, yeah, you're right. We have 0 no quarterback builds.
And that's tough too, because I mean, Drew Lock's price is down there, and I mean, Jalen Hurts is just, I mean, he is a really tough fade. But again, if you want to get unique and Galaxy Brain this slate, that's definitely one way to do it. On the surface, though, I like what we've come up with. I like the focusing on the skill position players in the captain spot. I could see myself later. I haven't ran my stuff yet. I'm going to work on the 3 max and single entry content later. And again, if you're playing single entry and 3 max, I don't think you want to do that. I wouldn't be. I mean, Jalen Hurts is going to be probably an elite captain option for me in single entry formats. And I bet when you pull up the cash stuff later today, I bet it's going to be Jalen Hurts captain in cash games. I mean, who else would you put if you're playing a head-to-head against someone? Is there any other person that you would put in there in the captain? You would probably start your build with Jalen Hurts, right?
I don't know. I've seen some of these Tyler Lockett ones. It's tempting. It's tempting for one reason, where Tyler Lockett easily gets you both.
In a head-to-head, thoad, I mean, Tyler Lockett has a floor. You know?
I think the secondary for the Eagles is just so bad. Darius,
I'm with you there. I'm definitely with you there.
Lockett's half the price of Hurts. I think that Lockett, I'm not even a Lockett fan, but he went 6 for 89 in a tough spot last week. Lock does have a little bit of connection with them. Lockett builds in the captain specifically, get you both quarterbacks, get you access to any wide receiver that you want. You might not even have to punt with Colby Parkinson, which if you're doing Jalen Hurts captain, it does funnel you toward that build unless you want to fade Drew Lock. So yeah, I think Lockett might be my favorite captain on the entire slate today.
Yeah, I like that. I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to argue against it at all. The JSN captain builds are. Can you highlight those? I want to see what those builds look like. I know his price. His price tag is. I mean, what's your take on his price? I mean, 8,400 versus Lockett, and we're talking captain pricing 9,900. I mean, it's not that big of much of a discount. So I definitely get the Tyler Lockett play over him in the captain spot.
Yeah, I think Jackson Smith and Jigba here, 5,600 in the slate. Great spot against this Eagles defense. Same way, right? If I like Lockett, I got to like Jackson Smith and Jigba. If I was picking one, Lockett straight up. Doing multiple lineups, definitely mixing Jackson Smith and Jigba. This Eagles secondary, like I said, great spot for him. Drew Lock, I think, can get him the ball. My concern is, like, what was it, 7 targets last week, turned into 4 for 25. Wasn't a great performance. It's a tough spot, though. But this week, I expect a rebound. I think the projection's on the high side of things, though. Like, what has he done to earn an 11-point projection with both Metcalf and Lockett? And not a whole lot, but you're betting on talent. He's got a lot of it. He's the best wide receiver in his draft class. It's not his fault Pete Carroll doesn't utilize him right. Bet on talent here.
Yeah, I like that. I wish Kansas City could have him. Get him and Rashee Rice in there. I mean,
I wish he went to Kansas City.
Yeah, I mean, it would have been nice. I mean, what was his? When did he get drafted too? I can't think back.
First round. I think he was like
first round. Okay.
Yeah.
He there's no way Kansas City was getting him.
Yeah, he was before the Chiefs. I think it was pick 21 or something like that, or pick 12. I can't remember.
Yeah, I mean, Rashee Rice is. I mean, he's a stud, man. He's looking real good. He's like the only hole. I mean, when it's tough going when like Travis Kelce is dropping balls too. Like he had a clear touchdown. I mean, he catches that like 99 out of 100 times. Who knows, man? It's rough scenes for the Chiefs and dropping passes and fumbles. Yeah, I guess let's do our final thoughts and then get out of here. I think this sets up to be a good slate. My final thoughts are I'm probably fading quarterbacks in the captain spot. I have a way more interest in focusing on skill position players. That includes the running backs. I'm not going to X them out, but I think we see receiver captain tonight. So that's going to be my focus on this slate. My play that I got to stick with Jackson Smith. I talked him up all slate. So I think, and I'm not going to go crazy, but I'm going to have a decent amount of JSN Captain builds, maybe like the 10 to 15% range, which I think, I don't know, what's our captain ownership projection on him? Like, it has to be sub 10%, right?
Which player?
Jackson Smith and Jigba.
Yeah, it's 5%. 5%.
Yeah, so 15% of him on 3x the field potentially. That's an aggressive, like, you don't need any more than that in my opinion. So that's going to be my take. What's your final thoughts? And we already know your play, Tyler Lockett. But what's your final thoughts on this slate?
Hand in hand with you. I mean, I think Lockett's my guy tonight. I think any Seahawks receiver, if the Seahawks sling it through the air, if Drew Lock throws a pick 6, that's going to be a good day for me because I'm going to be overweight on the Eagles defense. I'm going to be overweight on the Seahawks wide receivers. I'm going to be overweight on Drew Lock. All right. And if he does a pick 6, people always say, oh, man, he threw a pick 6 or whatever. You know what that means? He's going to trail script right away. He's going to throw the ball even more. And that defense got a free 8 points. And now that we're chasing this game and those receivers are going to get more volume, it's one of those anti-correlation, like the correlation breakers, they call it. I like those correlation breakers. And I think that, it's tough to predict a pick 6, but if it did happen, it benefits your lineup. It's not like he's got Geno Smith on the bench waiting to get in. Geno Smith likely out for this one. He's got to work. No one to worry about taking his job.
Yeah, I like that a lot. All right, that's going to do it for us. We have the hardwood coming up later. I'll be back on that. Rubio, you might have to be on that one too. I saw Mangone's flight was delayed, so
I'm on the up to lock.
Oh, you're on the up to lock. Okay, so you will not be on it, but someone will be rejoining me on the hardwood later on today. Then we have up to lock. Then we have the Print Factory later today. So a full schedule. A lot of NBA games today. A really good showdown game. A great day to make some money. I got to find our outro. There it is. Good luck if you're playing tonight. And always run here.